Hey, Chris Manning here from Locked on Cavs. Joined as always by my co-host Evan Dammarell. Before we get started, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Are you happy because you win, or are you win because you're happy? At only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. Stay tuned later on for the Ultra Player of the Week coming up later in this episode. And we're here after the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Boston Celtics 117-110. A very impressive performance from the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to do our normal awards: MVP, stat of the night, play of the night. I just want to first give you an MVP award because you, sir, have an injured arm, not because you got punched, not because you were playing too many video games, not because you were hitting the gym, although you do look like you've been hitting the gym, looking pretty ripped. It's because you got your vaccine, sir. I'm just saying congratulations to you.
It's just my quarantine 20, man. But yeah, no, I got my vaccine today for those listening. And I wore this shirt to, by the way, if you want to buy yourself a For Ohio shirt, link is in our Twitter bios and we will happily give it to you whenever you want. But
it's in the show notes if you're listening on a podcast feed.
The nurse practitioner said, I'm going to give you a pinch for not wearing green. And that was for the shot. And then he said, it's going to feel like I punched you later, though. And I'm like, it's not that bad. And then, as soon as the game started, I moved my arm. It just feels like there's a golf ball on my arm. It's just incredible pain. I felt really foggy before, so I ate some dinner and I'm doing okay. But yeah, the Cavs won, man. How dare you Freudian slip and say they lost? I know they've got their teeth kicked in the last 3 games, but they showed that Indiana University is probably the best destination for Brad Stevens, and they need to actually get a real coach in Boston. But yeah, good win for the Cavs.
Yeah, I think, frankly, one of their better wins of the season. I mean, I think this team had its back against the wall in a lot of ways. They've been kicked in the teeth, as you said, a lot of times. They had not looked good since the All-Star break, had looked really out of sorts. And it came on tonight, I think, playing with pace, I think playing with a purpose, or moving with a purpose, as it were. Led this game pretty often, frankly, led by as many as 21. Handled Boston in a lot of ways, did a really good job of scoring off of turnovers, had at least early on a pretty big free throw advantage, and got to play some tight basketball late. I think that's sort of what you're looking for here. I think it's, for me, as you think about what comes next year, I think it's about seeing how they can sustain this, right? Seeing how, if they can kind of continue to build on this and make it work for them going forward, right? It has to be something that I think they continue to do, not just in a game like this, but going forward. But Evan, let's get into our awards. MVP is whom? Who is your MVP for Cavs Celtics from Wednesday night?
Man, this is such a tough pick because the Cavs in general played really well. And like you said, they did learn how to hold on to a lead and win down the stretch. Austin Carr made a point to stress that multiple times as well. But I'm going to take the cop out and go with the Eastern Conference Player of the Month with the full starting lineup of the Atlanta Hawks. I'm going with the starting lineup for the Cavs in general. I really can't pick out specifically one player. Colin Sexton, phenomenal, had almost a triple-double. Darius Garland, awesome, had 25 and 6 assists. Jared Allen had 7 and 7, but he was a difference maker, and this was one of those games where he made more of a bigger impact outside of the box score. Isaac Okoro, incredible, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, played out of his mind tonight, and especially at the free throw line, which is one of the biggest bugaboos of his career. But Larry Nance Jr. as well, also great, 18 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and he finally looks healthy again. And he was 2 or 3 from 3. He was finally healthy. So I'm going to give a shout out to the entire starting 5 of the Cavs, and that is my cop-out MVP of the night. Chris, who's your pick?
I think you can make a case for either half of Sexland. I think you can make a really compelling case. I thought Garland had some of the most fun stuff of the night. This is an honorable mention play of the night, but when he came off that pin down, one of the first times I think I've ever seen him come off a pin down screen and pop for a 3 and stick it, I was like, oh, okay, we're adding some wrinkles here. That's a positive sign. I'm going Isaac Okoro, though. No, what were you going to say?
You know what I've noticed with Darius, though? Teams are starting to notice that he's really the only one who can facilitate Cleveland's offense. And so in second half adjustments, Boston threw double teams at him and Darius Wilt's under pressure. It's a little bit of a size issue and a little bit of just he's not used to that pressure as well.
Those high traps, the Peyton Pritchard, Jayson Tatum, or Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown traps or Grant Williams traps were very effective for Boston in mucking up the game. Evan, I'm picking Isaac. Yeah, go ahead.
And they threw Jimmy Butler on him, but we'll talk about this in the next segment. But Darius is really impressive, and I know I was complaining about him in yesterday's episode, but this was a good game for Darius, and kind of lets me plant my flag back and saying okay, this kid's the real deal. But your pick is who?
Isaac Okoro, and I've never left Isaac Okoro Island. I'm Mount Okoro, whatever we want to call it. Like my real estate is secure. Like I own we all own condos on different players' islands. Like my condo on Waiters Island has been destroyed 9 times over. Its value's never been lower.
I have a cabana on Fultz Island. I get you.
Yeah, there you go. So, but I own Isaac Okoro Island. Like he's having, I think, a really impressive defensive season more than anything else. This was a really good defensive game from him. I think did a really good job on Jayson Tatum, particularly in the first half. Was doing a really good job, like rotating over and helping off of to create blocks and attempt blocks. Like just a very hyper-aware defensive player. And then he put forth together a very strong offensive game. As you mentioned, 15 points. Was getting to the free throw line. Was confidently taking threes. Had a poster of a dunk late in the game to help seal it. Had a really, really nice, when Boston tried to put high Daniel Tice on him and let Tice kind of muck up the lane, Okoro beat him off the dribble and finished. And really stuff like that shows you that Okoro is growing in real time here. That's really, really, really impressive stuff. For me, it's him. I think you're right to shout out the whole starting 5. I think like if I was going to go runner-up, I think Garland would be my runner-up. I think it's like sort of hard not to even pick Sexton, but I just come away so impressed with Darius in this game. But Evan, let's get into play. I think the play of the night for me, it just has to be the Okoro EM on Jayson Tatum. I don't know how else we can, like, there's stuff that's like more nerdy basketball wise that we could get into, and maybe I'll mention something else aside from the stuff we mentioned, but like, because it's just what I do. But Okoro yamming on Jayson Tatum like that is you just love to see it.
Yeah, no, that's the play of the night. There's really no other pick for the Cavs in this game. Like Isaac Okoro, well, that was an emphatic dunk. It was a great play overall. The momentum was kind of teetering a little bit between Boston and Cleveland. I think that dunk really pushed the notch back towards Cleveland's edge. And yeah, no, it was a good play. And like you said, Isaac does deserve some MVP honors as well, because that was just a very complete game for him off. Not really complete, I should say, but he was a really sound offensively at times. And just an example of that, like he was just really smart. And like another smart move is when he attacked the closeout, like you said, and he got the easy up and under layup. Like that was a really good play on Isaac's part as well in the fourth quarter. Like this was a good game offensively for Isaac against a pretty talented defensive team in Boston, a struggling team, sure, but they're still good defensively. So yeah, that's just the play of the night pick for both of us. I tweeted, I said, it's the play of the night. I don't care. I still don't care. It's the best play. It's the most fun play. Like we could, pull some nerdy stuff out for you guys, but let's just have fun. It was a fun dunk. It was a posterizing dunk on a all-star player. So it's a good moment for Isaac.
I think shouts to Bill DeFilippo, but I think the Lamar Stevens dunk is probably the one that doesn't get mentioned here. But in non-lob category, so non like Jared Allen lobs, the Isaac Okoro has the other best dunks of the Cavs season. The dunk against Denver, where he posterized Jokic, this dunk, and the game-winning dunk he had in the preseason.
Yeah, no,
Lamar's game winner is like the other one, right? Like I can't think of any other one.
I mean,
like non-lob category, specifically non-lobs, because the Jared Allen lobs are fun as heck.
I think the Cavs have some boys that are going to go out there and start bopping between Isaac, Jarrett, Larry, Lamar. Let's say, like, if you listen to our Friday episode with Wes Goldberg and the Cavs do end up trading for Kelly Oubre, that's a 5th player. Like, just fun options. It's just fun, entertaining stuff. And, like, I know dunks are kind of a simple man's play, but at the same time, they're just a lot of fun, too.
Just one quick nerdy play. Sexton, end of the first quarter, running a pick and roll JaVale. Threw like a low pass, like well-placed pass to JaVale, and JaVale finished. It was just like a really good read from Sexton that he wasn't making last season. Just a little note there. All right, Evan, stat of the night for you is what?
The fact that the Cavs made 27 with the 33 free throw attempts, that really kind of killed them in some of their home games, especially against the Heat. Like that was a glaring issue. It's just kind of been a glaring issue so far for the second half of the season for the Cavs. And I know they're only a handful of games in, but to make 81.8% of their free throws to Boston's 69%, it's just a good night shooting. Granted, so those pet numbers are a little padded a little bit because of late game fouling by Boston, but like Larry Nance Jr., not a great free throw shooter, was 2 of 2. Isaac Okoro was 5 of 5. Darius Garland was 5 of 6, and Colin Sexton was 7 of 7. Jared Allen was the only blemish who was 3 of 6, and other than that, like just good free throw shooting from the Cavs.
Yeah, that's mine too. I think you could point at the 3-point shooting and sort of looking at that in terms of how the Cavs, the volume's a little higher than it has been at certain times this year. They shot obviously at a very, very high clip. ultimately, like, Boston took more threes, but the Cavs were, 43.5% on three. I think that's sort of mine. It's like they shot actually really well on three, and made the most of those shots. So I think that's it. Evan, any final thoughts on Cavs Celtics before we wrap up here?
No, like I said, Brad Stevens is going to look great in Bloomington next year. I'm curious who's going to be coaching Boston, but I know Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were all-stars, but there were 7 all-stars, excuse my math, on the floor at times for tonight, because all 5 of the Cavaliers were all-stars, and they're starting 5 for me.
You're giving me you really are just leaning into this Hawks bit.
Yeah, I am, dude. And if Mike Budenholzer coached the Celtics, it'd just be fitting for the Cavs to destroy them from 3. So there you go.
There we go. All right, but we're going to take a break here and dive into some other stuff after the break. We're going to talk a little bit about a Mark Stein report about Andre Drummond and a guy the Cavs wanted to trade Andre Drummond to get. But first, we're going to tell you about our friends at Michelob Ultra. And we're going to give out the Ultra Player of the Week award more specifically. Now remember, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. 2.6 carbs, 95 calories. Joy creates success, and enjoyment isn't the end game, it's the whole game. Evan, we have to identify a player that sparks at least one of these 3 key emotions: joy, happiness, enjoyment. Who is our Ultra Player of the Week? We have to kind of, I think, figure this out. There's a lot of good options. I think just out of this game in particular, who do we think it is?
I think it's Larry Nance Jr. He's finally healthy. He's finally looking better, especially in this game against Boston, and it's really good to have him back. And I think Larry is a guy who's a little health conscious, and I think he'd appreciate a nice, cool Michelob Ultra after a good big win against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I think it's Larry Nance Jr. I think that's a very good pick. Also doing a lot of good in the community, and he might want to cool off and enjoy a Michelob Ultra somewhere in Cleveland. But again, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. Michelob Ultra and Larry Nance, Ultra Player of the Week. Also want to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. So BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over. You can't really bet on free agency, but the NBA is in full swing. So is college basketball, and the NHL is too. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. And Evan, I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to get your favorite Bachelor in Paradise. You're going to get 2 seasons of The Bachelorette back to back. That's where we're headed here.
Man, this is some shenanigans, some tomfoolery and whatnot. I'm just so torn right now, and I don't know if I can recover, but thankfully I can recover financially thanks to our friends at BetOnline.
They have real-time updated odds, props, and almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It is the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And again, use that promo code LOCKEDON for your 50% welcome bonus.
Betting on the Cavs doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag wherever you get your podcasts. Probably the same place you find Locked On Cavs in your audio format.
All right, Evan, let's dive into this Mark Stein report. So Mark Stein, you probably first heard it from ESPN or the Dallas Morning News back in the day, where he covered Dirk and now works at the New York Times, reported that Norm Powell, who scored 43 points and had 0 assists, the first player in a very long time to do that on Wednesday night for Toronto, was someone the Cavs were asking for in Andre Drummond trades. That was someone they wanted to acquire. He's set to be a free agent in the offseason. He does have a player option that I would be doubtful he picks up. Interesting player, I think a very good player. I think it makes sense that the Cavs were able to, or wanted him, so to speak. It also makes all the sense in the world to me, and I think makes sound decision-making on Masai Ujiri part, which is really no surprise. He's one of the best executives in the entire league. That he was unwilling to give up Norman Powell to get Andre Drummond. I think that's the right calculus. And I think it says something very distinct about what Andre Drummond's value is going to be on this trade market as we get, we're a week out now.
Yeah, we're actually less than a week away. For those Legend of Zelda fans, when Tuesday hits, it's dawn of the first day, 72 hours remain at 3 p.m. If you know, you know. But First off, the Raptors have always been kind of a little interested in Andre Drummond. I know at first it was a serious interest, but I think it became tepid quickly with how well Norman Powell was playing. Because if you break down Toronto's salary cap right now and how their contracts are laid out, like Norm Powell had to be the key piece that went to Cleveland in this scenario, unless they're giving Kyle Lowry, and I don't think the Cavs really have much interest in Kyle Lowry.
Well, he was the betting. The Cavs were the betting favorite for him, according to our friends at Bet Online for a while, which is very weird.
It's still weird to me. Still, how bizarre, as the TikTok memes would say. But I mean, I guess the Cavs would buy out Lowry and he could sign at Philly or somebody else and actually play basketball. But that still seems silly because they would just buy out Drummond at that point. But no, Norm Powell, and it'd be like Norm Powell and then just Aaron Baines and then Pat McCaw, and then you could throw maybe a Chris Boucher or somebody else. Like Toronto had to gut their roster, and then with Norman Powell playing so much better and the Raptors kind of turning things around because they were dead on arrival when they had to play. Found out they were playing their season in Tampa instead of Canada because of border restrictions because of COVID. It took a little time to adjust. People were questioning Pascal Siakam's legitimacy. People were questioning OG Anunoby. People were questioning Nick Nurse as a coach. But Norman Powell's just played really, really well. I know, granted, it's a contract year. And I think if he did end up in Cleveland, I think his numbers would be even more insane because he would just kind of have a green light to do whatever he wants. But, yeah, like you said, this is good calculus on Masai Ujiri's part. It's unfortunate because I think I would have liked to see Norman Powell play. Maybe that's a player the Cavs could try and throw some money at in this offseason as well if they really wanted to keep him, because the Cavs do need a bit of a scoring punch off the bench. They do need a little bit of assist like that. Like I know, Chris, you negotiated a fake trade for Buddy Hield, and like I still wonder about it. But like the biggest thing that Buddy brings is shooting and scoring, and maybe Norm isn't as refined a shooter as Buddy, but he brings scoring to the table. But I think Toronto's going to get something nice for Norman Powell too, and it's going to be a lot nicer than Andre Drummond and maybe like a second round pick if the Cavs really had to up the ante a little bit.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to replace the Jetty Osman minutes if I'm Cleveland. I'm trying to like figure out like what I'm doing in those minutes. He's not been good. He was particularly, I think, bad a lot of the Celtics game. I don't think there's even like an argument. We'll talk about this more in the next segment. I don't think there's like an argument that I would rather see Dylan Windler play 18 minutes tonight than Jetty at this point. I don't quite get the sticking with Jetty. Sort of to me like an obvious rotational tweak you could make if you wanted to, but that's obviously just me. There's a reason JB Bickerstaff is coaching the team, and I'm talking about it on Wonderful WKYC. I'm actually the real winner here, frankly. But Ben Axelrod, where's my cold brew? Just saying. Just saying, Ben. But
Ben, we know you're going to review this video tomorrow when it uploads. So how you doing?
Give me my cold
Shoot
brew.
us a text if you want to come on the show.
I'll take a venti. I also just think this is a clear indicator that I don't think the Drummond market is hot. And I don't think it's going to get hot. I think a buyout is where we're headed here, barring an injury, barring like something unexpected. I just think we're headed towards the buyout here. And it's sort of, I don't think that's ultimately like a bad thing. I think sort of like I get why you do it. I'm sort of cooling on just bets on talent for reasons that I think we talked a little about it yesterday, and we'll probably talk about it again at some point. But I think this is a pretty clear indicator that if the Cavs end up trading Drummond, it's going to be the kind of deal that I think they could probably get now, which is bad salary and some kind of bad pick for Drummond. Yeah. I think that's sort of where what you can get. And if I'm them, I'd rather just buy him out and not like eat like a bad contract that doesn't fit as you're trying to kind of build something here.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel too. I've kind of had that vibe for a little while now that the Raptors were one of the last bastions. I think the Knicks were too when it came to trading for Andre Drummond. But
and then the Knicks were like listed as a team this week, but it's like only as a buyout. Like explicitly, the reporting has been they're interested in Drummond if he gets bought out. It's not they want to trade for Drummond. It's a buyout thing. Which is a notable distinction.
It is for sure. And I did note this in my trade deadline preview that's coming in Monday for Forbes that there's not really a list that's interested in trading for Andre Drummond. There's just, if he's bought out by Cleveland and it feels inevitable at this point, that list grows exponentially. You have like the Lakers, the Clippers as well. Excuse me, the Celtics, the Nets. You have the Knicks. You have Toronto. I'm sure would even be interested in him when he's bought out. Like you can get Andre Drummond on a cheaper contract, see how it works. If it works, you get him to a longer term deal. He sacrifices his bird rights, but I think he needs to be playing basketball instead of sitting at home collecting that check from Cleveland. But I'm sure the Cavs will hold on to him until the deadline, and then I don't think anything's going to come to fruition because you really have to think about it too. Is if this is a 1-for-1 trade between Cleveland and another team, that opposing team is going to probably end up gutting their roster to get Andre Drummond because he makes about $28 million this year. And then if you get a third team involved, it gets even murkier. And I don't really know where the Cavs or how the Cavs find a third team to get interested. I know Kobe Altman is a GM who learned from David Griffin to make something out of nothing in most situations, especially when there doesn't seem like there's a trade there. But I just don't see it happening with Drummond. I just see him being bought out, and it's just going to kind of be a little frustrating, a little unfortunate at first, but life goes on, and he hasn't been playing since early February at this point. We're about almost a month removed from Andre Drummond's last game as a Cavalier, and I think it's just kind of time to cut the cord in general. I wish the Cavs would just get this over with now, but I also understand maybe holding on and seeing if something comes up.
Yeah, I think the one that I still think about as just like a straight up would be something if the Bulls wanted him, you could do Otto Porter for him very easily. I don't think there's any traction there as far as I understand it, and I don't even know how you sort of like evaluate both those players, frankly. Like the Cavs might even just buy Otto Porter if they do that anyway, but it's okay. I'll be curious to see. This will, I think, ultimately open up some cap space in the summer for them. A lot of that's going to go to Jared Allen, but if, you give him $15 million and you have another 10 or so that maybe 10 plus you could spend there. Interesting to see how the Cavs would approach that. One of the big stories of the offseason for sure. But Evan, let's take another break here. We're going to dive into some more, some goals we'd set for the Cavs, or resolution, so to speak, for the last stretch of the season here as we kind of look towards the finish line, which is going to come up sooner than anyone thinks. But why don't you tell everyone first about our friends at Rock Auto?
And let me tell you about rockauto.com. Chain stores have different price tiers for professional mechanics and do-it-yourselfers. Rockauto.com's prices are the same for everybody and are reliably low. Rockauto.com always offers the lowest prices possible rather than changing prices based on what the market will bear like airlines do. Rockauto.com is for everybody and does not require membership or account login. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. They also have AC systems because this summer, my AC went out in my beautiful stallion of a car, my 2007 Toyota Camry, and I had to replace it. It was going to cost me about $1,500 at Goodyear, but with Rock Auto, I was able to save about $1,000, which is insane. So if you're interested and you want to save some money on your car repairs, go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, and they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out today at rockauto.com.
Everyone about our friends at Built Bar. We've been telling everyone about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market for a while now. Built Bar is the amazing low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, amazing tasting protein bar with 100% chocolate on every bar. And now it's time to find out which Built Bar is the best. It's Built Bar Madness. And Evan, today's matchup is another doozy. It is peanut butter versus the coconut puff. Now, I gotta say, haven't had the coconut puff. Transparent here. All the puffs I've heard are incredible. Hard for me to go against anything peanut butter.
It really is. It's really a classic matchup versus a newcomer. It's like Virginia versus OU right now, and I think I'm gonna go with peanut butter on this one too, though, because
so you're picking Virginia, is what you're telling me?
No, OU's peanut butter, dude.
So cool. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. I may or may not have picked OU in my actual brackets because Virginia's in quarantine till Friday. So, but either way, yeah, I'm gonna go with peanut butter on this one. How about you?
Yeah, peanut butter as well. And go to builtbar.com or built_bar, on Twitter to follow along. And remember, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. That is LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order at builtbar.com, and check back to see who won today's matchup and who will become the best tasting protein bar. And Deshaun Woodley would say the best tasting protein bar in the land. All right. Also want to tell you about the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. Get more analysis on the top prospects available in this year's NBA Draft with Locked On NBA Draft. Scouting reports, draft rumors, mock drafts, and full coverage of March Madness 4 days a week from credentialed draft experts. Subscribe today and follow Locked On NBA Draft, probably where you're listening to Locked On Cavs right now. Okay, Evan, last segment of today. Let's get into, we're each going to pick one thing that we think the Cavs should focus on the rest of the year. I'm gonna cede the floor to you. What do you want to do here? What's your thing here?
Continuing the mantra that the future is now for the Cavaliers. I already did it once by telling Andre Drummond to kick rocks and go home and starting Jared Allen. And I think even if Kevin Love's healthy, they put him on ice, or if Kevin Love's able to play, they keep him on ice, maybe tell him to go home, and they either figure out a buyout or some type of trade this offseason, and they just prioritize Larry Nance Jr. starting at the 4, because I just think in my heart of hearts, you cannot reliably lean on Kevin Love at this point, and you need to start building towards the future with this young core. And you lean on Larry as the starting 4 next to Jared Allen and alongside Isaac as the 3, and then you play Sexland at the 1-2 for the time being. Maybe things get a little different with the draft and free agency, but for now, you really want to get Larry Nance Jr. familiar with Jared Allen, because on paper, the potential of those two are really fun defensively, and there's some funness to it offensively as well that really works, and that's where I'm kind of at. How about you?
I think that's a good one. I think I think to hit that layer, I don't think their odds of making the play-in tournament are high, obviously. I think both of us are sort of low on that sense of them. But I do think this is a team that should be trying to compete for and make games matter. You want more games like the Celtics, even if you lose 7 out of 10 of them, right? Like even if down the stretch you lose 7 out of those 10 competitive games, I think you want more competitive games. You want something that resembles meaningful basketball for your young talent. I think that's sort of very clearly where you're sort of at in a lot of ways with them. I think that's what you sort of need and want them to get to a point where that's the case. I think that's a very good one. I think the future's now. I think you need to be pragmatic like this, right? I think you need to just sort of be pragmatic, and I think that could apply to moving on from Cedi Osman. And I think, that I think you still look a little bit to the future in terms of like not wanting to like not get a second round pick or something for JaVale if the market leans that for you. But I think looking at the future, so to speak, is a good way to do it. Evan, mine is I think I want to see the younger guys, and I have 2 guys in particular, well, 3 guys in particular that I want to see pushed in different ways. I want to see young guys being asked to do stuff to evolve their game in productive ways, not like getting isolation chances if you're Jared Allen or like Dylan Windler running 10 pick and rolls a game or whatever. Like, no, I want to see these guys doing stuff that is actually, I think, a way to evolve their skill sets. For Jared Allen, I think I want to see him continuing to get opportunities to pass the ball. I think we've seen the Cavs give him the ball a little bit at the elbow. They ran a nice play with that with him and Okoro on Wednesday night, where Okoro ends up diving to the rim on a little cut, and Allen feeds him with the pass. I want to see him getting more comfortable doing that stuff because it's a unique way to add a little bit of playmaking to your lineups. I also want to see how he handles as a post-up player, because he's not good at it right now. He's very sort of poor when you ask him to have to actually post up guys. That's not a thing you're doing all the time, and you're not going to run your offense through him, but he's not great at that. And then, Dylan Windler, like I want to see him. I don't think we've talked about this a lot. Like, I don't, is he Duncan Robinson? Probably not. He's clearly not, but like run him around screens, like run him around and let him like do some stuff that could sort of unlock him maybe a little bit more. I just want to see stuff like that, because even if the future is now, so to speak, you still need to find out what these guys are, and then it'll inform your decisions in the offseason. Like maybe if you have money, like Duncan Robinson's a free agent. Like, like he might be expensive, but like, could you make a run at him as a shooter if you're like he's better than Windler pretty clearly, but it's like, do you want to make a run at that guy when you don't even sort of understand? Like, is it worth to just throw the money at that guy when you don't even really know? You haven't even given Windler sort of a chance to figure himself out in a lot of ways.
No, I absolutely agree, and I tweeted this during the game against the Heat, is I wish the Cavs would run more sets for Dylan Windler like the Heat did for Duncan Robinson. I think that's basically what I said, but I think just letting Windler kind of expand his range a little bit is a good thing. Like they ran some sets tonight for Dean Wade to shoot from the perimeter, and like Dean Wade hit those threes, and Dean Wade is a pleasant surprise for the Cavs. I hope the Cavs utilize him more as time goes on, because I think he could be a nice rotational piece as well as just some depth at the 4, and depending on how the draft goes, maybe he will have a more permanent role in the rotation heading into next season. But no, Dylan Windler is a player that coming out of Belmont was known as a elite 3-point prospect, an elite rebounder. He's shown some good defensive ability in the NBA. He's shown some playmaking. He's a little bit of a light Joe Ingles. Actually, when I spoke to Dylan, when I did a rookie profile on him, that's who he said he models his game most after, which you don't hear most rookies say. But if the Cavs can tap into that a little bit and encourage Dylan to be more of a shooter than maybe a defender and a slasher. Maybe this is just Cleveland's offense in general, because Cleveland doesn't really run a modern offense at times either, so it's a little frustrating in itself. But I think that's a big thing for sure, is utilizing Dylan. And I also agree with Jarrett. Like when we did the crossover episode with the Chase Down boys right after the trade, like Jarrett is a sneaky good playmaker in the short role for Brooklyn, and I think that's something the Cavs can use more and feature in their offense. And I also agree, like, just him having a reliable post game is something nice to have, like, especially if, like, even as a playmaker, like, he can kick it out from the post as well and get easy looks for his teammates from the perimeter. Like, there's a lot of good things that can come from Jared Allen just kind of being encouraged to grow his game a little bit. And, like, there's plenty of potential to grow upon even after 4 years of experience. He's only 22, but yeah, no, I think those are all good points, like just better utilizing players. And I think we're just both on the same page where the Cavs just need to start prioritizing the growth and nurturing healthy development for these players as well.
I think some of this does fall on the coaching staff too. Like, I think we need to see the coaching staff. I think you saw them actually play with a little more pace and speed on Wednesday, which was a good change. I thought, again, I mentioned this earlier, but running the pin down for Garland was a really good thing, I think, to see more of. You're seeing versions of them using that double drag set that they've used a lot, where like Allen actually was the popper and then he re-rolled after Larry had been the initial roll man. Just, I think, really interesting stuff for them to just kind of do that. But it's interesting to see where they'll push it. I don't know how far it goes this year. I think you would like a summer league for your younger guys. Like, I don't even know if Okoro plays in it or anything like that, but like your top picks next year maybe could play in it. I think you could just use some run to kind of figure some stuff out and develop guys. I think for like a summer league would be good for a guy like Lamar Stevens, who I still sort of am more intrigued by him than I am Dean Wade, but Dean Wade's been really good lately. And I think he deserves like some run. But I'm sort of still more intrigued by him as like a potential like bigger wing. I just have like a thing for that kind of player. So I'm intrigued. You know, I think there's stuff here to figure out, and I want to see where they can take it, because I think a thing that Cleveland will need to do well to get good again or competitive again and actually be sustainably competitive is nail the end of the roster development.
Yep.
That implies to Dylan Windler, who took a 26 overall. It's obviously not a place in the draft that is a lock. You need to apply it to Stevens, to Wade, to Broderick Thomas if you want to try to develop him a little further. Like, you need to develop guys like Houston has developed Jayson Tatum. You know, like all these teams will, like, you know, the Jaden McDaniels in Minnesota has been like a revelation for them, and
his brother in Charlotte's been great too. Yes.
You need to hit on that kind of stuff and make it work. And Charlotte also like Devontae Graham, like in Miami and Toronto have been churning out, you know, like really interesting players on the fringes of the league for a long time. You know, like that's sort of how part of the reason why they're, you know, good in a lot of ways, even though not every guy hits. Like, and maybe like Kendrick Nunn isn't perfect as a basketball player, and like Duncan Robinson has, like, you know, some warts and everything. Like, these are rotation players, and it's impressive that you're able to develop them. It can go the opposite way. Boston obviously has had a lot of like not great picks, and missed a lot, and it's hurt them, I think, arguably. But it's interesting to think about. Evan, any final thoughts as we get out of here? We'll be back tomorrow with a trade episode with Locked On Warriors and talking about Kelly Oubre. But any final thoughts here?
No, not really. It's just thanks again for anyone who's checking us out on the first time at WKYC. We do this 5 days a week anywhere you can find your podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. You can probably find us there in audio. But yeah, come check us out. If you're on Apple, please give us a 5-star review. We'll be giving you shout outs on the show. I need to do a better job of checking. That's actually to be my goal for starting next week, is start reading these 5-star reviews. But no, the Cavs, it was a bit of a palate cleanser when they beat Boston Wednesday night, and it's just kind of like, I wouldn't say the good vibes are 100% back, but people aren't as temperamental as they were the other night, or last night, I should say, after the loss to Miami.
Myself included, frankly.
Yeah, myself included too. Everyone be ready for Friday's episode, or well, I guess Wednesday's episode.
Yeah, a little more, you know, calm down a little bit, but also, check us out on Locker Room if you're an iOS user. Download Locker Room app. We're going to be doing lunchtime with Locked On Cavs every week, 12:30-ish on Wednesdays. Join us. You can hop on stage in the app and ask us questions and chat with us and all kinds of stuff. It's a fun platform. I think we just did our first one, and it was a lot of fun. And most of the audio is never going to be in the podcast. So if you want some more takes, go there, check it out. But for myself, for Evan, again, find us on social, CDMemrights and not Evan at Locked On Cavs. We'll talk to you all again tomorrow.